welcome to my recent media update video. A couple of months ago I did a video talking about all of the things I was watching while I built some Lego, and while I don't have any Lego or anything else to do while I chat about these things, I wanted to do another video talking about it because I really enjoyed doing it last time and I've been watching a lot of really great things that I want to talk about, so let's talk about it. I'm going to mention the first two live shows I've seen recently and then we'll go into the TV. And the first thing I'm going to mention is obviously the Eras tour, because I finally got to go after a year of counting it down and everything, and oh my god, was it incredible. I'll try to add some clips and some photos that I took and all the rest of it of the night so you can kind of see what I'm talking about, but this was one of the greatest gigs I've ever been to. I knew Taylor Swift would put on an amazing show because I'd seen like the concert tour video thing in the cinema, so I knew kind of what I was getting into, and I'd obviously seen loads and loads of clips that people posted online, but nothing compares to actually going to the show because it was incredible. And I mean, I was right at the back of Wembley Stadium. I couldn't have been further back or higher up. Literally, I was literally like the furthest back, the highest up you could possibly be, and it was still an amazing show. Even though Taylor was about this big, I think she was honestly tiny, and I was relying a lot on the screens to see what was going on. But I mean, the whole night was incredible. I mean, literally the opener was Paramore to start with, which was absolute teenage dream come true to say the least, because I was definitely an emo kid who absolutely loved Paramore when I was a teenager. I loved their earlier albums. I will admit that some of their newer stuff is not for me, but and that was the majority of what they played, but they did play The Only Exception as well as Still Into You, which was absolutely incredible. I'd love singing along to those. But the highlight for me was Misery Business for Paramore, because I didn't know what they were going to be playing. I think they switch it up most nights, so they don't play Misery Business every single night, but I was going, please play Misery Business, please play Misery Business. It will make my teenage years and my teenage emo heart so happy if they played Misery Business, and they played Misery Business. I couldn't have been happier if I tried. I love that song so much, so to hear it live was an absolute dream come true. To see Paramore was a dream come true as well, and then Taylor came on, and wow, does she put on a show. Like, I knew what was coming because obviously, like I said, I'd seen the Eras Tour show thing in the cinema, so I kind of knew what was coming. I didn't know what was coming specifically with the Tortured Poets Department section because I'd deliberately not looked anything up for that. I knew kind of what outfits she'd be wearing and the song she was playing, but I didn't know much about the staging or anything else. And even on the bits that I knew what was coming, she absolutely blew me away. It was an incredible show. The highlights for me were Bad Blood because of the sheer drama that came from that song. Enchanted because that is one of my all-time favourite songs as well, like from Taylor, and then also All Too Well because it was the 10-minute version and I love that song. I absolutely adore that song so much. So to hear that live was incredible, and to scream F the patriarchy at the top of my lungs as well with 80,000 other people was incredible. I will say as well that I loved hearing things like Down Bad, that was incredible, and all of this kind of thing. The fact that Taylor brought Hayley out onto stage as well to sing Castles Crumbling, if I remember that's the title of it. My brain's gone a little bit fried, I won't lie. It's been a bit of a time since I've heard that song properly. So that was incredible as well to see her bring out Hayley, all of this kind of thing. And my only regret for the night was that I didn't go the day before, because then I would have been at the same show as Elle McNichol, or the day after, because then I would have been at the same show as Andrew Scott and Kate Blanchett. I mean, don't get me wrong, I was at the same show as Theo James, which was pretty damn cool because I've loved him since he was in a show called Bedlam, and then like in Underworld and things like this, so that was incredible. But I could have been at the same show as one of my favourite authors or two of my favourite actors, like Moriarty from BBC Sherlock and Hela from the Thor movies. Like, that would have been incredible. That was the only thing. Like, everything else was absolutely perfect. It was absolute perfection. I loved every single minute of it. It was like top tier show. Definitely would recommend. If you are going to the Eras tour at any point, you are going to have the greatest time, trust me. And then the other show I saw recently was Heathers the musical, because I love Heathers. Heathers is my favourite musical of all time. I saw it, this is actually the third time I've seen it live, and I've also seen the slightly less than legal versions of the original London cast, which is Carrie Hope Fletcher and Jamie Moscato, and then I've also seen the slightly less than legal version of the Broadway version as well, and I absolutely love this show. If you don't know what it is essentially based on the original movie from the 80s starring Winona Ryder, and it is about a young girl called Veronica Sawyer who is very, very unpopular, all the rest of it, and she ends up joining the Heathers, who are essentially the Plastics. This was the original Mean Girls, I should say. This is definitely the original Mean Girls from the 80s, and we're following Veronica when she joins the Heathers, and what happens when she gets a boyfriend who takes very much, like, a very sort of protective stance over her and all of the unpopular kids and all the rest of it, and decides to get revenge on the Heathers because they are cruel bullies, essentially like the Plastics, but quite frankly a lot worse than the Plastics in Mean Girls, and it ends in murder. And it is such a good show. I won't lie, it is such a good show. It sounds very heavy, it is very heavy. It talks a lot of bullying, depression, suicide, all of this kind of thing. So definitely, if you are interested in this, after I've talked about it, definitely look up the trigger warnings, because there are a lot of trigger warnings for this show, I won't lie. But it is such a good show. It is so funny in places as well. It's actually funny throughout. It's a very, very sort of comedic show in that sense. But it is so much fun as well. I love what it has to say about bullying and friendship and all of this kind of thing. I love everything it has to say about that. I love the songs in it as well. The songs are absolutely incredible. I love Meant to Be Yours. I love also I Say No, also Beautiful, Dead Girl Walking, 17. All of them are absolutely incredible songs as well. And this is the third time I've seen this show live. I've seen it twice on the West End and once when it was touring, because generally it's not in the West End that often and it's not touring that often. But whenever it does, I go and see it, because I just love it so much. I don't know when it will be touring again or in the West End or have any sort of production on. So whenever there is a version available, I will go and see it. And this version did not disappoint. I mean, I was right smack bang in the middle, right centre of, like, right at the front of the stage as well. I could literally, like, touch the stage. Literally, it was that close. I was really, really close. I'll try and put some like footage in. I filmed before the show actually started of how close I was, which was absolutely incredible. I will say I did have to crane my neck a little bit at points when people were right at the front of the stage, but that was a minor problem. I absolutely loved it. I will say as well actually that the Soho Place, which is where this was at, is a absolutely gorgeous theatre where like, no matter where you sit within the auditorium, you will be able to see. They've sort of made it really, really nice like that, so you can see all the way around and you're not going to have an obstructive view anywhere, which is fantastic. Also, the inside of the theatre itself is absolutely gorgeous. They've got, like, constellations in lights across the like ceilings, like everywhere apart from the auditorium as well, which is absolutely gorgeous. Again, I'll try to put in some footage here for that. And it was just such a wonderful show to see. And I will say that the actor playing JD, if I can find him, JD, Keelan Macaulay, this guy here, he was the greatest JD I have seen. I've seen several JDs now, and he was the greatest one, because he did that terrifying teenage boy thing so well. Like, some of them have been scary, but this guy took it to a whole new level, and I commend him for that. He was an incredible JD. He's the best one I've ever seen, and I just love this show. I love it so much, and this was one of the best productions I've seen of it. I've seen 3, obviously. I did not see the original with Carrie Hope Fletcher and Jamie Moscato, and that is one of my biggest regrets in life, is that I never got tickets to see it, because I mean, I love Carrie Hope Fletcher. We know this about me. She is my favourite musical theatre actress. I loved JD in the role as well. I've heard their soundtrack a lot, because they are the original cast recording, so they're kind of what I see in my mind whenever I'm, like, listening to it and stuff. But this production was incredible. Everything about it was incredible. I loved it so much. And also, if you are interested in this show, it is available on streaming. They did do a pro shot of it, which is on, I think it's Amazon. I know it's on some streaming services, but if you do want to look it up and you do want to watch it, just look up the trigger warnings first, because there are a lot of them. But if you aren't triggered by anything that is in this show, it is so worth seeing, because it is incredible. I should also mention that the audience for this was incredible as well, because Andy Fickman, who is the director of Heathers, always says that going to Heathers is like going to a rock concert, and he is not wrong on that one, because the audience really gets involved. The audience will turn up dressed up. I saw so many people dressed up as the Heathers or as Chatty and things like this. I saw loads of people wearing like Westerberg High jackets and things like this, because the school in the show is called Westerberg High, all of this kind of thing. And then whenever somebody finished singing, we were all cheering at the top of our lungs, which is always so much fun. They actively encouraged it with this show, and I absolutely love that about this. And what I'll try and do here as well is try and put in a clip that I recorded of the bows at the end, which you are allowed to record, because you'll be able to hear just how like appreciative the audience is, and how much the audience loves this show. It is one of those shows, it's like Rocky Horror in that sense, that everybody loves like seeing it. Everybody who's there is a hardcore like Heathers fan, and everyone really has a good time with it. It's so much fun, and I recommend it to everybody who wouldn't be triggered by the subject of the show. It is so much fun. I highly recommend it. If you can find it on streaming, definitely go and watch it, because it is absolutely incredible. I cannot get enough of Heathers. I really cannot get enough of Heathers. Outside of the live shows I've seen recently, this has actually been a really sort of active year for live shows, I will say. I booked a whole load of things last year, and they're all sort of coming in this year and things like this, which is awesome. But anyway, outside of that, I have also been watching a lot of films and TV, and the first film series I want to talk about is A Quiet Place, because I've never seen A Quiet Place before. I should have done by now, and I should have watched it when it came out, but I never watched it. But the new one, A Quiet Place Day 1, came out like this month, so I was like, right, I'm going to finally watch A Quiet Place 1 and 2, and then we're going to go watch Day 1. And these movies are so good. If you're looking for a really atmospheric short horror movie, you cannot go wrong with A Quiet Place, because this is based on Earth a few years after a alien invasion, where the aliens hunt via sound, and so everyone has to be like completely silent. You cannot say a word, you cannot make that much noise, all of this kind of thing. And the first two movies, we are following a family as they're trying to survive, and they are so good. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time watching these movies. I was scared to make a noise whenever I was watching it as well, because I was just like, what if the aliens come, because I was so into it. The same thing happened with A Quiet Place Day 1 as well. I was scared to like eat some of my cinema snacks or anything, because I was like, what if the bag rustles, because it was like that sort of silent atmosphere. I was on the edge of my seat with it. And I mean, with Day 1, Lupita Nyong'o and also Joseph Quinn were incredible in this movie. They worked so well together in this. You really got like a really heartfelt story in the middle of this as well, which really worked, because these movies aren't just horror movies that are like scary for the sake of it. You do also have a sort of really good sort of heart-filled storyline in there as well, which is really cleverly done, considering people can't talk through most of this. All of this kind of thing. It is absolutely incredible. I absolutely loved watching this movie. Outside of that, I've also been rewatching the Terminator movies, because we just decided we really wanted to watch Terminator. I don't know why, but we were like, we haven't seen these movies in a very long time. Let's watch Terminator. So we rewatched the first three, which were the ones I watched in my childhood, and I was obsessed with the Terminator when I was a kid, and I mean truly obsessed with the Terminator when I was a kid. I absolutely loved these movies. I don't know what it was, but something about Terminator just really sort of hit with me when I was a teenager, like when I was a kid. And I still really enjoyed them. I sort of fell off them as a teenager, but now I'm fully back again. I have been loving them. If you don't know what the Terminator is about, it is, the first one is set in the 80s, and we are following a young woman called Sarah Connor, and she's being hunted down by a futuristic robot who looks human and everything else, who's trying to kill her because in the future, it turns out the robots have had a massive uprising, and Sarah Connor is going to give birth to John Connor, who is going to lead the uprising of the humans to stop the robots. So they've sent a robot back in time to essentially kill her, so she never has John Connor in the first place. And this first movie works like a slasher, and it suddenly fell in as I was watching this, that like again for the first time in like 20 years or whatever, that the first movie is a slasher. And I went, that's why I like slashers so much, because it's that formative thing where I watched this when I was a kid and it sort of settled in my brain, and apparently I reckon that's why I now absolutely love slashers, because you are literally following the final girl as an unstoppable force is coming after her and is killing everyone she loves to get to her. And it was very much slasher in that sense, and I absolutely loved it. And then the second two are very similar in the sense that you are still following Sarah Connor, but now we have a good Terminator who is now trying to save John Connor and Sarah Connor from other robots who are also being sent back to try and kill her and her son. And they are still so much fun. I love these movies so much. I think they've aged really well, especially considering they were made in like the 80s and the 90s. They've aged really well in a lot of ways. They are nowhere near as sexist as I was expecting them to be, or anything else like that. I will say that like the technology really dates it, because they're using really big TVs and things like this, which is obviously like, you know, a bit dated, but I don't mind that much, because obviously they couldn't do anything about that. But they're really fun movies. They are really fun movies. I've had so much fun watching them, and now we're going to go on to Terminator Salvation and the new ones, which I've never watched before, which is really exciting. The other thing I've been rewatching is obviously the X-Men movies, and I have been loving rewatching these. Always, like, we all knew this about me because I love the X-Men. I talk about them a lot on this channel, but I've been rewatching them and the Deadpool movies and everything else in the lead up to Deadpool and Wolverine. And as of 2 days ago, I watched Logan for the first time since it came out in the cinema, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. It really did. It really hit me like a ton of bricks all over again. I knew it was going to be emotional, because obviously Logan is the one where Wolverine dies at the end. He meets his clone daughter X-23 Laura Kinney, and he basically dies to protect her, and it is, oh my god, it hit like a ton of bricks. Like, I knew I was going to cry, but I really cried. It was the minute Laura held his hand and called him Dad for the first time, and he died holding her hand, and it just reminded me of that moment in The Wolverine, which is the one we watched before that, where Kimiko turns to Logan and says, I had a essentially prophecy vision thing where you're going to die holding your own heart in your hand. And that obviously applies to like the Wolverine as well, but in Logan he dies holding his heart in his hand, and his heart is his daughter, and it was like, it was so sad. It absolutely got me like a ton of bricks, to say the least, all over again. And I had to immediately go and watch Multiverse of Madness afterwards to cheer myself up, because I was like, I can't deal with this sadness. I also need to watch Multiverse of Madness, because obviously that is a multiversal movie. It's explaining the multiverse of the MCU and all the rest of it. I'm going to go watch that, and that was so much fun. As always, in my mind, you cannot go wrong with a Doctor Strange movie, which is leaning heavily into the horror. You're dealing with the multiverse, Wanda being an absolute badass as well as being very terrifying, while Steven also becomes a zombie. I mean, you can't go wrong with it. You cannot go wrong with it, and that's without talking about the Illuminati scene or anything else. I love Multiverse of Madness, as we all know. But what I didn't realise I was going to really enjoy, though, within this rewatch is Dark Phoenix and the Wolverine, which I just briefly mentioned, because I was really worried about watching Dark Phoenix and also the Wolverine in this rewatch, because I've only seen the Wolverine once when it came out in the cinema, and I did not enjoy it that much because I was about 17 when it came out, and it was very sort of cerebral and slower than I was expecting. And I just didn't really care for it the first time around, and the bit I enjoyed the most was the end credit scene where Charles and Eric turn up to set up Days of Future Past. And that was my favourite bit when I was a teenager, and I was a bit like, oh, I'm going to have to rewatch this movie, I'm not sure about this movie, all the rest of it. And then I watched it again 10 years later and ended up really enjoying myself, I will say. I will say it's still not my favourite Wolverine movie in the world, or like my favourite X-Men movie in the world, but it was still a pretty good time. I did enjoy how we went more into like Logan's psyche and things like this. I do like that it was based a little bit more in comic book lore and things like this with Wolverine in Japan and all of the rest of it. That was really great. And I will say the exact same thing happened as well with Dark Phoenix, because I saw Dark Phoenix twice in the cinema actually on day of release, and then I never saw it again because I was a bit like, you haven't matched this up, because the problem with the X-Men universe is that the continuity is off. To say the least, the continuity is off, because the continuity just does not match up in any X-Men movie whatsoever. My personal headcanon is that the TVA keeps on resetting the timeline and all of the rest of it because they keep on doing things wrong, so they keep on resetting it as part of the, like, one timeline type thing. That's my excuse for it, because otherwise it just annoys me, because nothing ever matches up with these movies, whether it be the prequels, the sequels, or whatever. Nothing is matched up. And the one thing I wanted from Dark Phoenix was them to match it up to the ending of Days of Future Past, where everybody is in the school, everyone is alive, all of the rest of it. And they didn't do that. And I was like, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, I was fine with Hank being, like, the leader of the school. I was fine with it being called the Jean Grey School. All of the rest of it, that was absolutely fine. But the fact that Jean, they all thought was dead, and she was actually in space and not in the school, and things like this, I was like, why? Like, why? Don't get me wrong, I love the ending for Charles and Eric, because I very much ship the two of them, so I was really glad that they were going to be, like, living together and things like this, and, like, all of that kind of thing. That was wonderful, but I wanted it to line up with Days of Future Past, and that just annoyed me, and I couldn't get past that annoyance the first couple of times I watched this movie. So when I rewatched it now, I was like, actually, this movie's pretty good. It's just the fact that it doesn't match up at the end, which is what annoys me, and that will always annoy me. But the rest of the movie's pretty solid. Don't get me wrong, you can tell it was rushed. You can tell it was meant to be two movies that was squashed into one, which is very, very annoying, because I think the merger was going through at the time, and they were like, oh, well, we'll just shove it into one movie instead of making it two, and things like this, which is very, very annoying, because a lot of things could have happened, and we could have seen a lot more nuance to it, and really explored like the Dark Phoenix saga and everything else. But them's the breaks, that's what happens. Fox clearly just didn't care by that point, which is really, really sad, because I really love these movies and they had a proper legacy to them. They really paved the way for the MCU and everything else, so, you know, hopefully the MCU is going to do them a lot better, but we'll see on that front. I've got every faith that they will, though, because Kevin Feige's in charge. But anyway, they were not as bad as I was expecting them to be, which was fantastic. It means I can watch them again at some point and be like, it's not going to be that bad. You don't have to, like, avoid them or anything, and you don't have to just stick with First Class, X1 through 3, Days of Future Past and Apocalypse, which is great, because I enjoy those movies a lot, but I'm very excited now that I can add the Wolverine as well as Dark Phoenix as well to that list, but not Logan, because don't want to cry again. Really don't want to cry again, so I'm probably going to avoid Logan forever again now, but I'm still glad I rewatched it. And then outside of film, I've also been watching 2 TV shows recently, and both of them are very sort of satirical comedy type things, weirdly enough. The first one is The Boys, which is essentially a superhero show, but it is very much being satirical of our real world at the moment, essentially, because you've got this group called the Boys who are trying to take down the superheroes, because the superheroes are massively corrupt, especially Homelander, who is the leader of the Seven, which is essentially the Justice League of this world. And while Homelander looks like he could be, say, Superman, he is Trump. He is 100% Trump, in the way he acts, in the way he, like, controls everything. Like, if you've seen the show, you'll know exactly what I mean. Anthony Starr, who plays him, has literally said that he bases his performance on Trump, and my God, can you tell? And what I love about the show is that they're not hiding that. They are very much going, no, Homelander is based on Trump, and the Republicans and all of the rest of it, this is what The Boys is about. And they are not hiding it whatsoever. They are literally taking Republican talking points and then satirising them in the TV show. So you've got literally in the last couple of episodes talking about in the case of sexual assault and pregnancy, a woman has the ability to shut that down if it's real assault, which is obviously not true, but they literally put that in there with a guy genuinely believing that, and he was like a senator. You've got the fact they're talking about the insurrection at the moment as well, and that people are planning an insurrection of their own within this, and all of this kind of thing. It is in there, and they are satirising it, and it is so good. But this is not a show I would recommend for everyone, because it is so violent, so filled with sex, so filled with gore, and so filled with like swear words, including the C word, which is used at least twice per episode. I would literally say that it literally makes Deadpool, the movie, look like a Sunday morning Spider-Man cartoon. It's that violent. It literally makes Deadpool look kid-friendly. It is that, like, over-the-top violence and all the rest of it, which is fine for me because I really, really love that stuff. But I know that's not for everyone, so I can't recommend it to everyone. I'd say if you are interested in this, maybe look up the trigger warnings because there are a lot of them in this show. And also, if you are not, if you don't like Deadpool, do not check this show out because there is a lot of that kind of thing in here. But if you don't mind that kind of stuff, the satire of it is on point because every single week I go, oh my god, they're going there, and they go there, and then they satirise it perfectly. Everything about it is on point in terms of the satire. The storyline is incredible. All of this kind of thing is so, so good. I still don't know how they get the cameos they get because they've had in here, in this season, they've had Tilda Swinton turn up as the voice of an octopus, which makes total sense because she's in love with like the Aquaman type character, and that makes total sense within the show. They've also had Will Ferrell turn up at one point. They've had Charlize Theron in this one. Haley Joel Osment, I think that's his name, you know, the kid from The Sixth Sense. He was in this in the first series. They've had actually the guy who played Bobby in the X-Men movies playing Lamplighter, who was essentially like Pyro of this universe. All of this kind of thing. They are all in this, and it is just one of the greatest shows I've ever watched. I laugh the whole way through and go, oh my god, they're going there every single time, and it is just one of my favourite shows of all time. I love this show so much. I highly recommend it if you are into like satirical things and you don't mind a lot of gore and a lot of swearing and a lot of sex. Though what I will say though is that I do have one criticism of it, and that's how they treated Huey in one of the latest episodes, because Huey is, putting it lightly, sexually assaulted in what can only be described as like a dungeon for kinky things. I'll put it that way, and it's just very much skimmed over and sort of treated a little bit like it's funny, which it definitely is not. And I do wish that hadn't been skimmed over or treated like it was funny, because they've treated like sexual assault against women really, really well. They've treated assault really well, and all of these other sort of like things really, really well, but that they did not treat at all well. So I do wish they'd done that a bit better, but everything else is just so good. I highly recommend it if you love that type of show. And then the other show I've been watching is The Great, and The Great is very much a sort of farce in a lot of ways based on what really happened in Russia when Catherine the Great sort of came to power, essentially. But they are very much doing it in a very different way to what actually happened. They are making it very, very farcical. They literally say it's an occasionally true story instead of saying it's based on a true story or anything, because we're following Catherine when she marries Peter, who is already the Emperor of Russia at this point instead of his father, and we are following her as she's realising that he is an awful human being to say the least. He is an awful human being, as then she is planning a coup against him, and how she goes about that, and how she goes about running Russia to improve it, all of this kind of thing. And it is so funny. Like, the things they get up to is absolutely hilarious. Some of the things they come out with is also hilarious. All of this kind of thing. If you don't mind your shows being completely historically inaccurate, definitely give it a go because it's very much not following what actually happened at all. There's a few moments where you go, oh, that's probably based on history, and it turns out it is, but most of it isn't, because in real life a coup happened 6 months after Peter came to power, if I remember rightly, and then he died quite quickly afterwards, where in this one he lives for a very, very long time, and him and Catherine are sort of having this sort of like power play against each other, trying to outdo each other, all of this kind of thing. And it is so much fun. I mean, Nicholas Hoult and Elle Fanning, who play Peter and Catherine, are incredible in this. They bounce off each other so well. Like, their chemistry is amazing as well. How they sort of really argue with each other and how they really play these characters off each other is absolutely brilliant. I love them interacting with everybody else as well within the cast, because the rest of the cast are absolutely brilliant as well. This was definitely a show that was cancelled far too early, because I'm about to watch the 3rd series because it's just coming out on Channel 4 at the moment. So what I'm doing is rewatching the previous 2, so I remember what happened last time, this kind of thing, and I'm just really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying it. It was definitely cancelled far too soon. It should have carried on, but it didn't. And again, this is not a show though that I can recommend to everybody, because there is a lot of sex. There is a lot of talk of sex, a lot of sex scenes, a lot of swearing as well, a lot of killing people via stabbing, shooting, beheading, this kind of thing. And you do actually see like heads and stuff like this that have been severed. You see people being shot and all the rest of it. I wouldn't say it's anywhere near as gory as The Boys or Deadpool for that matter, but there is still a lot of murder and death and sex and swearing and all of this kind of thing in there. So if that's not your thing, definitely avoid this, but it is so much fun though if you don't mind that type of thing. It is so much fun, and I'm having the greatest time watching it. As for what I'm planning on watching next, there are a few things. First of all, I've got to watch Deadpool 2. I've watched Deadpool 1. I now need to watch Deadpool 2, which I'm going to be doing the night of watching Deadpool and Wolverine, just before we go and see it, because I'm seeing it at a midnight showing, so I've got to watch that one. And I also need to rewatch Loki as well, because obviously that's dealing with the TVA and the Sacred Timeline, all of this kind of thing, which is obviously going to play a massive part in Deadpool and Wolverine, so I'm going to be rewatching that, which brings me so much excitement because I've really missed Loki recently, so I'm very excited about that. Then the only other thing I am planning on rewatching soon is the Umbrella Academy, because the final series is coming out in August, and I love this show so much. It is very much a dysfunctional family of super-powered people, multiple timelines, how they keep on screwing everything up and trying their best and everything else, and it's about them slowly becoming a family and working together and generally screwing up the timeline more, I won't lie. But it's so much fun. I am so sad to see it go. It was actually created by Gerard Way of My Chemical Romance, which is awesome. It's got like Tom Hopper, Robert Sheehan, so many other people in here as well, which are like really talented actors. And it is, again, so much fun. I really enjoyed this show. And again, I'm really sad to see it go, but it is the final series, so I'm going to be rewatching the previous 3 so I can really enjoy the 4th one, and sort of say goodbye to it in style. And there's really, I don't think there's anything else I'm going to be watching soon. I think that's all of it. I'll at some point be also watching Interview with a Vampire when it comes out on UK streaming or like iPlayer or whatever, because I love that show. I know the whole of it is out in America right now, and I'm getting spoiled to hell at the moment, which is really annoying. But I'm hopefully going to be watching that soon. And I think that's everything I've got to mention here. I don't think there's anything else. I've got a couple of medical shows that I've been watching, but I'm not going to mention them here in case anybody is squeamish, because these are real life medical shows and I obviously don't want to like make anybody feel squeamish or whatever. So yeah, I'm going to wrap this video up here because I've got comics to read for Deadpool and Wolverine. I've got The Great to finish so I can watch Loki and all of the rest of it, so I'm going to leave this video here. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do give me a thumbs up. Comment down below, tell me a thing you've been watching recently and really enjoying. I'd love to know. Or if you don't have that much time, leave me a TV related emoji down below to let me know that you were here. I'll also leave a link as well down below to all my social media if you want to check it out, including to the Comic Book Sanctum, which is my website dedicated to Marvel Comics, which is going to be filled with all things Deadpool and Wolverine and Mutant and X-Men and all of that kind of thing if you are interested in that, as well as the link as well down below to my bookish Etsy store if you want to treat yourself to something bookish today. Or if you just want to see any more of my videos, please click subscribe here, and over here will be the link to my previous video. But until next time everyone, bye!